What are we making today? Would you believe that I have another 5 ways to share with you to use your 6x6 pattern paper? Let's get chopping. Hi, my name is Jenny. Welcome back to my channel. I hope that you'll be inspired to chop up your papers today. Let's get started with our first project. We're going to be making mini matchbook notebooks. The paper pad I'm using today is something I got from the dollar store, and it's a nice heavyweight cardstock. It's not flimsy paper. So I'm going to cut this down into 3 inches. So we're going to get 2 projects out of this one sheet. Once I've got it cut down, I'll pull in my scoreboard and I'm going to score across a 6-inch side at 3/4 of an inch and then 3 5/8 of an inch. Okay, that's it for the scoring. I'm going to fold these score marks and crease them together. And that's pretty much it. We're just going to add a little bit of scrap paper into this. I have these offcut sheets of coffee dyed paper, and I'm just going to take a whole bunch of whatever I've got. I'm going to use a paper clip and hold them together, and I'll cut this down to 2 3/4, and then I'll turn the paper and just cut it down to 3 inches, making sure that I got a good size that's going to fit in my little notebook here. And I'll line up those papers, make sure they fit. And I'm going to grab a stapler and put one staple in the middle of this little 3/4 inch flap here. And I will just want to put my staple in the middle so that my little sheet of paper can tuck right under. And there we go. That's it. This project is complete. Super simple. We've got these cute little coffee dyed papers inside of a little matchbook. So again, like I said, you get 2 projects from one sheet. Okay, moving into project number 2, this is tags in a pocket. This is a fun one because there's absolutely no waste from this. Same as the first project as well. So I'm going to start by cutting a piece down to 3 inches, and then I'll take one of those pieces and cut it down to 4 1/4 inches. So the 2 pieces that are on my desk right now are going to be tags, and then this piece is going to be a pocket. So I'm going to work with the pocket first, and this is now 4 1/4 by 3 inches. So I'm going to score at 1/2 an inch on 3 sides. So I'm just putting this in my scoreboard, 1/2 an inch, and then turning it, and then 1/2 an inch again. And what I ended up doing was scoring this wrong. I kind of cut that out, but I used some distress ink to mark the edges so that you can see what I was trying to do. So I scored 1/2 an inch on 3 sides, and then I'm going to cut away these corners that I've got marked out here. So I'm just making little angle cuts and cutting away those corners, and this creates our little pocket. Now you can trim off these top corners if they're sticking out. You can make a little angle cut there, but I didn't feel it was necessary for this one. I grabbed a circle punch and created a little finger notch. And now this large tag will slip right into that little pocket perfectly. Now we need to turn it into a tag because right now it's just a piece of paper. So I'm going to cut the corners off here. I'll do the same for the little tag as well. And then I'm going to grab some Distress Oxide ink. This is Uncharted Mariner, and I thought that this color would just coordinate with this paper nicely. So I'm just going to ink up all of the edges of my pocket. And I'll do the same to both tags, just inking up those edges. I think it just helps really intensify the colors and brings out some of that blue in the paper. So everything is inked up and ready. I'm going to pull in a journal that I made. This is a handmade journal that I used some paper and washi tape, and I did a little bit of sewing and coffee dyed paper, handmade paper, all of those things I just mentioned to create this book. I really love it, and I haven't used it yet. And I thought this is a great opportunity. I'm going to start using this little journal as my idea book for my Chop It Up series for 6x6 paper projects. So I'm going to glue this little pocket into my book. I need to punch a hole in the top of my tag. I have this little contraption here. I got this from Amazon, and it's supposed to be for like security badges or ID badges. And it punches little slot holes. It also rounds corners and punches regular holes. And I really like it. It's a really fun tool. And I love the slots that it creates in the top of a tag. So I've added some sheer ribbon here and tied these 2 little tags together after punching out the little slot punch in the top. And look at that. It fits inside of my pocket beautifully. It's a perfect first addition to my handmade journal. Okay, let's move into project number 3, which are mini tags. These are so cute and fun. One sheet of 6x6 pattern paper gets us 6 tags. Let me show you how to do this. So I'm going to cut my paper down to 4 inches by 6 inches. And then I'm going to rotate the paper and start cutting across the 6-inch side at 2 inches. So that's going to give me one sheet that measures 2 by 6 and 3 pieces that measure 4 by 6. So I'll take that bigger piece and I'll cut that down to 4 inches. And then we have this little scrap left over. Leave that off to the side. We'll come back to that in a minute. Now I'm going to stack up all of these pieces. I've got 4 pieces that measure 2 by 4. I'll cut the corners off of one side and then I'll take the top piece and flip it over. And by doing that, it creates a guide to show me where to cut my tags, and I have perfect even symmetrical tags. So there we go. We've got 4 cute little tags ready to go. And now for this little piece, this measures 2 by 2. I'm going to cut it in half at 1 inch. And then I'm going to cut the little corners off the top to create a little tag topper. So I'll just cut off those corners. I'll flip the top one over and then it gives me a guide where to cut. And then flip it over again, cut one more time, and boom, there we go. Beautiful, even cornered tags. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my little punch contraption. I'm going to punch the slot into the top of the tags, and then I'm going to slide the little mechanism over to the middle, which is where the hole punch is, and then I'll slide my little tags in and punch a hole. And I did think this was a little bit too big for these little tags, but I think it's okay. So there we go. That little hole is punched. And now I'm going to slide the little punch guide over one more time so that I can punch out corner rounds. I just slide the cardstock in and punch out my corners. And there are these little lines or guides to guide you where to put your paper in so that you get the paper in the right spot and get the holes in the corners and whatever rounded the way you want them to. I hope that makes sense. It sounds kind of crazy just listening back to this recording, but I think you get the idea. I'm going to ink up the edges of this tag with Dusty Concord Distress Oxide ink. I like adding the distress ink to the outside edges of the tag. I think it helps give it a finished look. Okay, so these 4 small and 2 mini tags are complete. Okay, let's move into project number 4, which is stackable pockets. I created these specifically for my mini tags. Let me show you how to do this. We're going to create 6 pockets out of one sheet of 6x6 paper. So I'm going to cut this in half at 3 inches, and then I'm going to turn the paper, and across the 6-inch side, I'm going to cut it down to 2 inches. So I'll end up with 3 pieces that measure 3 by 2. And then I'll do the exact same thing to the other sheet of paper that's left so that I have 6 pieces that measure 2 by 3 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and punch a circle notch in the top of all of these pockets. I've also inked the edges, and I did a little bit of Uncharted Mariner, and I also did some Dusty Concord. I thought those 2 colors look absolutely beautiful together. So you can do a stack of 3 pockets like this, and you'll get 2 sets of them. Or you can put the whole thing together and create one big pocket. So let's start gluing these together. I'm going to take one piece, leave it on my desktop, and just use my grid lines to help me because I want to make sure they're evenly spaced. I'm going to apply just a little tiny bit of adhesive in the top corner of each of these pieces of paper, and then line it up on my grid lines. And I'm just putting the next pocket halfway down that piece of paper. And then I'll do the same thing for the second one, a little bit of glue on each corner, and then line this up and put it halfway up that piece of paper that's there. Okay, so we end up with something that looks like this with glue on these 2 sides. Now I'll do the same thing to the second set of pockets, and then to glue everything together, it's pretty simple. I don't think anybody really needs a tutorial for this. I think this is just sort of an idea to get you inspired and start cutting up and gluing paper. But this is super simple. We'll glue the 2 sets of pockets together, and I'll use my grid lines to make sure it's nice and straight. And there we go. This is ready to be glued inside of my journal. So let's pull back in my idea book and flip over to page 2. And I'm going to glue this down. Now, in order to glue this, you have to put glue on the bottom of each pocket. Otherwise, everything's going to fall down to the bottom and you'll never get it out. So I'm just going to apply a little bit of glue on the top of each piece and then glue down all the sides, just like this. It's just a little bit of glue, enough to seal everything and hold everything into place. And then I'll glue this down into my book and press. And now I can take my tags and stack them into my pockets. So I found that this was a little bit too tall to go into that top pocket. So I skipped a pocket and then put everything in. And then I put those little baby tags in the top pocket there. There we go. Our pockets are complete. All of these little pockets, 6 of them, I got from one sheet of 6x6 paper. This looks amazing. All right, moving into idea number 5, our last idea for today, I'm going to create a faux envelope. I really like how this project comes together. So I'm going to take one sheet of 6x6 paper and I'll cut it down to 3 1/4 inch. The smaller piece that we have cut out is going to be the flap of our envelope. So first thing I want to do is score a 1/2 inch, okay? And then I'm going to flip it around to the side that doesn't have the score mark so that there's no score on this side. And I'm going to find the center. I'm going to mark this at 3 inches. All right, I'm going to fold that little score mark and I'm going to work in my trimmer using the point here and the point that I marked out on my paper to create the triangle flap of my envelope. So I'm going to pop this piece in, line up that top corner with the mark on the paper right along the blade of the trimmer, and then I'll cut. And then I'm going to turn this piece around and do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to line up that mark that we have on the paper and line this corner up with the edge of my trimmer. Okay, and then cut. So now we have a perfect sort of triangle flap here. And this piece on the back is what's going to be glued down inside of our book to create our closure. Now this piece is going to be our envelope. So what I mean by faux envelope is there's no back to it. So this is just going to glue right down inside of our journal. Now I need a little space to be able to insert some paper or whatever in and out of this little envelope. So I'm just going to eyeball cut a little piece here. I ended up going too far and I'll show you how I fix that in a minute. So I'm just going to score a line where I had cut to. Okay, this is just so that I can fold it. You'll see what I mean in just a minute. So I've cut a few little pieces, just about 1/4 inch in on the left and right. And now I'm going to take this piece and fold it down. Okay, so you kind of see where this is going. I'm going to crease that fold. I'm going to apply some liquid glue to seal down that little flap that's folded over. We could cut this away, but I do like how it creates a little bit of stability in that little opening there. So I glued that down, and now I'm going to distress all the edges. For this paper, I decided to use tea dye. This is Distress Oxide tea dye. And because you're going to see this back flap of our little envelope, I decided to cover that with the tea dye as well, so that you don't have this stark white paper. And I think this is beautiful. It turned out really nice. It complements this paper very nicely. So here is where I figured out that I cut those little flaps too deep. So you can see when I line up my envelope flap, you can kind of see those gaps a little bit. And I didn't want that. So I just took my scissors and eyeballed and just cut off a little bit here. So ideally, you only want to cut about 1/4 inch into the paper so that you don't have this big gap. And then when our little flap goes over top, it'll be perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to glue this into my idea book. So I glued down this pocket part first. I found it a little tricky to adhere the envelope flap after I already had the pocket glued down. So that's why I suggest starting with the flap first and then the pocket. But that, of course, is hindsight, and we all know that hindsight is 20/20. So I glued down my flap and just slipped it into that little pocket opening there. And then there we go. Press everything down, make sure everything is glued. Look at that. cute little envelope. It looks like we just glued to this page, but it's really a faux envelope. So also I had an afterthought here. I decided I wanted a way to tuck my envelope flap in. So I came in gently with a craft knife just to create a little tiny slit so I could cut away a little tiny piece of paper there so that I could slip my envelope corner right into the pocket to hold it shut. And look at that. A beautiful envelope or faux envelope glued to a page with that little tuck spot for the envelope flap. I've got a little journal card that I created that will slip in here. And there we go. Perfect. So this journal card measures 5 1/4 by 2 3/4. Since all of my other projects were glued into this book, I thought we might as well add in the little matchbooks too. So I had some scrap pieces of paper. I just applied glue to the left and right of these pieces of paper and glued them into my book. And then it creates a little slot for my matchbooks. So the little flap of my matchbook can hang off of that paper and tuck in all these different ways. It really made me happy to see all the ideas I have for today's video in one place in my idea journal. I hope that this video has inspired you to get to chopping up some of your 6x6 pattern paper, and maybe you're interested in creating a handmade journal to add your ideas into. I have tons of tutorials on my YouTube channel sharing options to make handmade journals, ways to chop up pattern paper, and so much more. I hope that you'll check out some of those videos. Thanks again for joining me. Have yourself a lovely day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!